so I can go ahead and begin.
Please.
On behalf of the Board of Directors of ICA USA and on behalf of all of my staff who make this building function so well, I want to welcome all of you to this opening session of the Global Archives Research Assembly. I've been asked to just say a couple of words about why I think this is an important event. And every time I turn around, I'm reminded about this, particularly in terms of our current program activities. This past week, we had two people from the University of Illinois at Chicago at the Center for Civic Engagement, much to my surprise, registered and attended the top training program, the TFM. And they came and registered on this from a stimulation that originally happened over 2 years ago. And they came to see our building, and as we walked around the building and told them our story about who we were and whatever, we walked right by the montage that's in the hallway, and right in front of the table that is there where you had all these books and everything. Now, all those archives books, they just appeared one day. Nobody came and talked to me about would it be a good idea. They just appeared. I sort of felt that this was the archives team, the archives team's initiative to make sure that I never forgot the archives, was to put it right across from my hall. But on that, we had Town Meeting 76. And the folks from the Center for Civic Engagement, they're very interested right now in trying to talk about something new that they've caught up with, that they hear people talking about: public dialogue and deliberation. And we said, well, you want dialogue and deliberation? Let me tell you about what we did in 1976. We did 5,000 town meetings across the entire country. And anyway, this was very, 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 very interesting to them. Now, at the same time, they came and went to the top training, and they just loved this. But then they came and asked me, they said, well, how do you practically apply some of this? And particularly given their interest in public dialogue and deliberation, because that's a little bit of a different twist than doing strategic planning for an organization or for a nonprofit organization, which I think is the bulk of how we apply our top programs. But I said, well, let me tell you about what we did in Cedar Rapids 5 years ago in 2009. And I was able to pull out documentation that clearly said what happened over a 5-month period of time, what took place, what were the methodologies that were used, there were 7 workshops, something like this, and then here was a document that talked about the impact and the significance, and I gave it to them. And this was very, very stimulating to them in terms of a practical way that they could apply something that they've encountered. And so therefore, to me, it's the depth of our archives and the energy that represents of past engagement brought forward to the current moment that occasions a whole new dialogue and discussion about how do we move this forward. And with people like the director and assistant director of the Center for Civic Engagement at the University of Illinois in Chicago. Well, to me, this is just a practical reminder of why the archives are a living, breathing reality and why they're important. And I realize that this meeting, and particularly as we're working and have colleagues from all over the world, that this is
about
not
100.
Huh?
About 100.
About 100, and how many countries?
8 or 12.
8 or 12 countries.
75% Northern Hemisphere, 25% Southern Hemisphere.
My point is, I'm giving an illustration of what we experience in terms of the archives here in the United States. I know that that's the same kind of reality that our colleagues in countries all over the world have, both a rich history to share, a rich program activities that they're pushing their horizons on, and therefore I'm going to assume that that same kind of dynamic is true in an international kind of context. So, that's just a very practical reminder for me on why this archives is important and why we need the ability to, when you talk with people, to be able to quickly and efficiently engage people in that kind of dialogue with the past for the sake of the future. And so I think in that perspective, I especially want to welcome all of you that are here in Chicago, our colleagues around the world who are participating in this virtually. And if it's my role and responsibility and my privilege, I would say I want to declare this Global Archives Research Assembly formally open.
Wonderful, and thank you, Terry. I'm Gordon Harper, and I want to second the welcome to all of you who are participating remotely, and the sturdy group that's gathered around the tables here in Chicago. Only a small representation of what we hope will be the community participating in this research assembly. We'll do a quick round of introductions in a moment, but I wanted to start by saying this is the opening of what is a one-week research assembly. We intend to end this at noon on Saturday, September 28th, that's Chicago time, Central Daylight Time here in the U.S. So we'll have a full week to work together. This is a point in the journey of the Global Archive Project, which has been going on for many years, and Marge on my right here is nodding because she has been one of the people maintaining its going on for many, many years, for which we're extremely grateful. But something happened 2 years ago that led to this moment, and that was we looked at the fact that things needed to change and probably change dramatically in response to what was happening in the world and what was happening within ourselves, our team. We said we need to continue doing the gritty work of file, folder, accessioning, and cataloging, and digitizing some of the files and so on. That's not going to stop. We need to continue something that was just getting started, building collections, namely taking arenas of our work and giving people passageways into those arenas. We call them collections, and we'll look at some of those in a moment. But we also need now to have a point where we're looking at how the archives is made accessible to a wider audience, to all of the ICAs around the world, to the partner organizations with which we work that are taking aspects that we focused on and showing what those who care are doing today, and how we link what wisdom we have from our experience, learnings, documents, projects with the people who are on the front lines today. So this is focused in a very significant way, and I appreciate your comments, Terry, on the future. While we're working with archival materials, our interest and our attention is on the future. Then it's also on the past, because ICA has always drawn on the long history of the Invisible College, Those Who Care. We studied, as you remember, the Desert Fathers. We studied intentional communities. We built what we did in Fifth City off of a lot of sociological research and the work of other people in community development. What we then did now is what we're trying to make available for future generations in a similar way. So we're at a moment in time, in history, where there are ample crises. Yesterday, Terry hosted here at the ICA USA a 3-hour workshop on the environment. Wednesday, there will be this magnificent activation of the solar panels on this building. So we're in the midst of current work of the ICA. At the same time we're thinking about the future, we're reaching into the past. ICA has always been about whatever it's been doing, it's been on behalf of the future. It's been done not just for the moment, but for the sake of those who are to come, and hence the attempt to garner the learnings, the insights, the wisdom from whatever it was that we were doing that could be passed on. So, what I want to say, just a little bit about this week and what's going on, maybe to look first at the symbol of the Global Archive Research Assembly, and you'll notice on the left historical records, processing and managing files, focusing collection research, creating the future of our past. We've also talked about this as claiming the future of our past. Then the knowledge engagement, developing the global networks and finessing the virtual technology. What we'll be doing in the Global Research Assembly is an experiment, and yeah, trust me, it's an experiment. We're working with technology that we fumble at, but this attempt to do recording, to do live broadcasting, to do interactive dialogue with people around this table, but also around in many spaces in many countries, is going to be an experiment over the next few days. So, I want to turn, just having said that, the Global Research Assembly is at the bottom of our symbol. Our daily time design up here, to say a word about how we're going to work this week. We have, this is our opening day, and we're in the process of finding out how many of you want to work on what aspects of the research assembly. Many of you have picked a working group, and we have 5 working groups right now that I want to mention. Some of you are coming to visit, not to work in one of the working groups, but to visit some of the events that will happen during this week, and that's great. We welcome that. Some of you will be looking at recordings or materials generated by the research assembly groups later on, and we welcome you to do that. So however you choose to participate, you are most welcome. But we're going to, tomorrow will be largely a team formation day. We'll be looking at who has joined which of the teams and trying to communicate with them in a kind of initial formation mode so that we can work together during the rest of the week. Monday we'll actually turn to our foundational historical records team and we'll look at what their task is, what their task has been, what they've done to make it possible for you, for all of us, to access these archival records now and make use of them, and how perhaps you can contribute to the archival records from wherever you are without having to come to Chicago, bring your your boxes of materials and so on. Anyway, look for some surprises from the Historical Records Day. The second day is focused on imaginal education. And this is one of the arenas where we have tried to take the work of the past and throw it way out into the future, to find groups that are working cutting edge on education today and connect those two in a dialogue. We'll be focused during that day on some of these experiments, and they'll be going on in the different time zones around the world. So we'll hear more about that as we get to it. Wednesday is, you see the starburst there in the time design. That's when we all look up to the heavens, actually to the roof of the ICA Green Rise building here in Uptown, where some of us have been watching with great interest the laying of the solar panels. And the switch will be thrown, the power will flow from the solar panels, if not into Terry directly, at least
Something will happen.
the power grid of this building. And there will be people lined up to watch from distinguished quarters of our great city of Chicago. The afternoon will be a share fair where we will honor the work of this building in its current manifestation. The people we call the tenants, who are the nonprofit organizations that make up the community of this building, in a way that I don't think we ever imagined when we started Fifth City, that we would have a huge building that was a community made up of organizations, one of which is the ICA USA. But we're going to find out more about what these organizations are doing on that day. I'm looking forward to it. We'll also have a table to share the ICA's work and the ICA Archives activity. Thursday, we're going to move into the social process arena, another aspect of our work that we're throwing out into the future. Many of you remember or have seen the triangles that try to describe how societies work in any time in history, in any organization, and how it's possible to occasion change in the midst of the dynamics of society. Much work has been done since the original research into that topic. We're going to be exposed to much of it, talking about how it can apply now in a time when great changes are happening and great changes are needed. So look forward to that. Friday will be the day in which we focus on, now what? The future of the archives. Out of all of the conversations, presentations, interaction, work that gets done during the research assembly, we'll step back and say, okay, this is a transition time for the archive team. We can't do what needs to be done just with a few volunteers coming to Chicago on occasions and working together here with files. We need a whole new way of imagining completion, what completion of the task might look like. And whether that's digitizing everything in the basement, God help us, and turning it into online accessibility, or it's a new way of approaching the task of collection building and reaching out to new communities of those who care. We want to have some very hard proposals ready, concrete proposals ready by the end of the research assembly. Saturday will be our close. We will close during the 9 to 12 hour of Saturday morning and celebrate our work together with you. We'll look for ideas about next steps and where we go from here, and we'll have ideas to share about that. I think the working groups will be you've received information about those. I don't know if we can bring the working groups up at the moment, but they're the ones that we've talked about here on the time design. Any of you who are interested in working on one of those working groups, if you could send an email to any of us on the archive team. Most of you have received a letter or an invitation as to how to do that. There's an actual survey monkey that can be filled out. If you have any questions, call, email, drive to Chicago and collar one of us, whatever is needed. I think I'm going to just have everybody just say their name around the tables here, because this is kind of the core group. This is we're the support team here for this Global Archive Research Assembly, and God bless the people who have come in from wherever to be part of this on site here in Chicago, as well as you who are participating remotely. And just before I do that, to say we thought there were three ways you could participate, and we kind of jokingly referred to them as the look-in way, which is where you will take a look, a glance at some of what we do this week, as your interest leads you to do so, and we welcome that. And then there's the drop-in way, which is where you identify something that's going on up here that you are interested in, and for that you kind of follow the instructions for how to participate in that event. And it's a little like our old collegiums, where there'll be a presentation and then a discussion after an interaction and so on. And then the third way is I want to be part of this group, and whatever it's doing, I want to be in on the action. I want to be thinking with the team that's working on that. We're calling that the plug-in. Look in, drop in, plug in, all of them are good. So I'm going to just, I'm going to start with this person on my right here, and if you'll look toward the screen there, this is Marge Philbrook. Say just a quick word, Marge, about when did you start working on the archives?
Oh, my name is Marge Philbrook. When did I start working on the archives? At the impetus of my husband wanted to come work on the archives. In 1995, we returned to Chicago because he was interested in working on the archives. And I've been here ever since. For some of that time, I was also holding a job with the Institute, in which I managed the conference center. But since 1995, I have been working with
If we had an award to give, it would be to Marge for the longest service.
Oh, and I'm also the oldest one around. Nobody can beat me.
All right.
Or a room to name.
Yes. Okay, going around the circle.
Oh, great. I'm Roxana Harper from Seattle, Washington, and this is the first time I've been here to experience the Archives project directly.
Okay.
I'm Barrett Griffith, and I'm working with the historical records, and have been hanging around the archives since some of the early planning around 2006, 2007. I work with several collections. I'm working on a chronological history and hear that other people are interested in that, which is fabulous. And currently working to get some of our system stuff going here so that several people know how to do it.
Okay, I'm Paul Noah. I've been working with the archives, I think, since like 2009, 2008.
Oh, okay. Hi, I'm Jack Gillis. Recently arrived from Mexico. And I'm working primarily with a team of folks that are interested in the social process work. And it's more than simply the triangles. It's a question of the ability to communicate those triangles in an imaginable way and the contexting of them in a larger context and so on. I just want to make sure that people understand that although we have Thursday as, quote, our day of presenting the work, there will be work going on every day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, as well as Thursday, and then Friday afterwards. So we welcome anybody who wants to be part of that team, and we're going to have a lot of fun.
I'm Dorothea Jewell. I'm here from Macomb, Illinois, west central Illinois, where I now live. This is my second time to be present actually for a working session of the archives.
My name is Jean Long, and I moved here in 2010 to become part of the archive team, and I live on the 7th floor here in the building.
I'm Terry Bergdahl. I'm the Executive Director of ICA USA. And I'd like to just highlight that the archives are really important to our new staff people. And if anybody has any doubt on that, you ought to look at the video that we filmed last time, because it was a really dynamic reinforcement on why it's important for our new staff who haven't experienced these programs to see how they utilize it and draw upon it and contribute to it.
And if you haven't seen that video, let me direct you to the youtube.com. You've all been on YouTube,
No,
I hope.
no. Is that a worm?
And on the youtube.com site, type in ICA Research Access. That's all one word, and you'll find Terry's video from last time there as well, I hope, as this recording. And we want to catch the man behind the camera here.
Now, Jim Weagle, and apparently, I've got the longest connection with the archives, because my connection with archives started in 1971. Working on the Global Research Assembly, where it was insisted that every single thing that was produced, we would take 3 copies, and we'd put it in the archive box, and we would get that filed. And I suppose we're still suffering. But it occurs to me, having old files means somebody did something or thought something important enough that it was going to last, and took the care and the effort to put it somewhere so that it would still be there later on. Do you want me to just go right into the spirit of it?
No, let me finish up. I'm Gordon Harper, and I started working with this group 2 years ago. But 10 years ago, some of us who are working on this project now started the ICA repository, which was a do-it-yourself archive in which we invited colleagues of ICA around the world, former staff and current, to put up their memories, their photos, their videos, their documents that might not be in any archival collection except their own. And it's still, of course, a part of our overall archival collection. I want to just say a word of thanks to not only Terry and the ICA USA for hosting this, but to ICA International, most particularly to Martin Gilbreth and Seva and Larry Philbrook, who helped us present this research assembly at the global gatherings a couple months ago, and get helpful feedback from our colleagues around the world. We hope many of them are participating today. And I also want to recognize the members of the Archive Advisory team that are not present here in Chicago today. Sally Fenton, Rosemary Albright, help me out. Steve Harrington, Frank Knutson, Tim Wegner, Wendell Rafier,
And our archivist from
and Christina Wolf
Christina Wolf.
from Oklahoma City University, who has graciously contributed time and expertise to this archival project. So thanks to all of them. And then, oh, and to say a word of thanks to the Wind and Waves editorial team
Yes.
for that fine invitation. Much appreciated to say something about the archive project in the last issue of Wind and Waves, particularly Dharma Lingam, Robin Hutchinson, I think, whom we worked with most directly on that.
And Isabel de la Masa. And Isabel de la Masa from Chile.
Thank you, Jim. Okay. We've never done a research assembly, global research assembly that wasn't about spirit. In fact, it may be that's the most important thing we'll be doing this week, is working with spirit. And to introduce that to us and say a word about what the spirit component of the Global Archive Research Assembly looks like, welcome Jim back.
You'll find all this on the website, the Wedgeblade WordPress website, and we're trying to post that link as many different places as we can. When we chose to take on the idea of a global research assembly, that kind of upped the work a little bit, and we had to think, well, what are the components? And if you think back, it's been as much as important, if not more important, what happens to the people who are involved in these events, as it is the work that they get done. In some sense, there's no disconnection. So we've had a small team working to design a simple spirit life. Ellen Howie, Susan Fertig Dykes, Mary Kurian D'Souza, Jan Sanders, and myself have been working on it. We put together a couple of simple resources. One that just fell off the wall. We want to investigate, as a part of our research, we want to take the time to step back and understand how we're being pressed to recreate ourselves. Without some recreation of who we are, we don't have a rich enough imagination to grasp what's really possible in the future. In some ways, this is a struggle for all of us. So that's going to be an important piece, and Jan Sanders is going to work with us in a couple of sessions around growing a new sense of leadership, which is some work that came out of the Nepal ICA International Conference. And I was hoping, it occurred to me, Terry, that might be a good point to involve some of the ICA staff if they would have the time in a dialogue with her around that notion. Might be interesting. Second, Spirit Life has always had also to do with stepping back and trying to understand afresh, hitting the refresh button on our identity, who we are. And back a couple of years ago, as Terry was struggling with articulating who and what ICA is, he put together a little 4x4, which is available online, trying to say from a historical perspective who ICA is now. So we're going to want that up around for us to be thinking about who are we now? What do we do? How do we operate? What do we know? What's the same and what's different? And the third key element is just a pause that refreshes. And so we've created a design dividing the 24 hours into 7 chunks of time, all through the day and all through the night. And we're recommending you just pause and read a poem. And we selected 7 poems from Mary Oliver's book, Why I Wake Up Early in the Morning, which is available in a Kindle edition. And Dorothea is going to read this hour's poem.
I would like to write a poem about the world that has in it nothing fancy, but it seems impossible. Whatever the subject, the morning sun glimmers it. The tulip feels the heat and flaps its petals open and becomes a star. The ants bore into the peony bud, and there is the dark pinprick well of sweetness. As for the stones on the beach, forget it. Each one could be set in gold. So I tried with my eyes shut, but of course the birds were singing, and the aspen trees were shaking the sweetest music out of their leaves. And that was followed by, guess what? A momentous and beautiful silence, as comes to all of us, in little earfuls, if we're not too hurried to hear it. As for the spiders, how the dew hangs in their webs, even if they say nothing, or seem to say nothing. So fancy is the world, who knows, maybe they sing. So fancy is the world, who knows, maybe the stars sing too, and the ants and the peonies and the warm stones. So happy to be where they are, on the beach, instead of being locked up in gold.
All these resources are available on the website, so we can all connect with them. We've got a Kindle edition of the book here, so whenever the Spirit moves us, we can simply read these poems. And I'm sure a lot of you have other poems, so feel free to sneak them in and read them. I'll be also working with the tech team this week, along with Gordon, trying to keep at the question of how we keep everyone connected and provide links to the website and other places for you to be involved. And also I think I'm going to be working a bit with a small group of people that's actually a 6th working team that's going to be working on the Global Academy. Just trying to begin the process of understanding what's there and what riches might be available for the future. The question we're asking is what gives shy persons the strength to stand up and do what needs to be done? Because it seems to be there's a lot that needs to be done, and there's always need of more people standing up, and some of us still are a little shy.
I think this is our formal opening to the Global Archive Research Assembly. Anyone here, have we missed anything that needs quickly to be said? Looking to my core team here for answers, if we missed anything. If not, we're determined not to have any fun during this coming week. But just so you know, the core team is having wine and cheese every day at 4 p.m. And we would certainly invite you, wherever you are, to have a little glass of wine and a little cheese with us, whatever time seems to fit the 4 p.m. Chicago time for you. Welcome to the Global Archive Research Assembly. Thanks for coming. We'll be talking. I think that's it.